you're guiding, and you're comforting, Lord. And we also know that
Verbs, not providers. That was funny. It's 25 through 28. Gave me a big laugh. I think I had to ask 3 or 4 people just to double check that providers wasn't in there somewhere I didn't know. Anyway, she is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you can surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. I think I went a bit farther. Oops.
With these things, so give me just a second here. All right. Motherly love. Well, welcome everybody and good afternoon. Hope that you are enjoying the beautiful weather that we've been given here the last day or two after all the rain that we had, and really looking forward to enjoying this weekend. I want to talk just a little bit today. First of all, Happy Mother's Day for those that are mothers or are a mother figure. For those of you that have been around with me for the past 9 years or so, you know that anytime I give a message about either Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day, or a day that we honor a class of people, I always put an asterisk next to it and say that I understand not everybody has had the wonderful, loving relationship that maybe we're going to look at today from their mother or father or whomever, but there are things that we can pull out of the message that we can really, truly, regardless of whether we're a mother or not, that we can execute through the power of Christ indwelling in us that can make a difference in the lives of those around us. And so if you have a situation where your relationship hasn't been the best with your mother, then use this as a launching pad of growing your relationship with Christ and how we interact and react to the things that happen in our life. So, I want to tell you a little story before we get going. There was a little boy who had decided he wanted to get his mother a gift for Mother's Day, and he had heard that there was something special that she needed, and he wanted to take care of that. So he asked for a little bit of money from his dad, and they went to the department store, and the little boy comes wandering through the ladies' department, and he gets to the lingerie department. And he's standing there just basically befuddled. Doesn't know exactly what he's doing. And so the lady in the department comes over and says, "Hi, young man, what can I do for you?" And he says, "Well, for Mother's Day, I want to get my mom something." "Well, that's wonderful. What would you like to get?" "I want to get her a slip." And so she says, "A slip, are you sure?" And he says, "I want to get that because I heard her tell Dad that she needed to get a new slip." "Well, okay, let's go over that direction," she says. And they begin to walk. And she says, "Let me ask you a couple of questions. What size do you need?" And he stopped and he looked up to her and he says, I don't know. I didn't know that I needed to know that." And she says, "Well, maybe we can figure it out." She says, "So is she tall or is she short?" He goes, "Oh, she's about average." Don't you love that, right? Then she says, "Well, okay, would you say she's on the heavier side or the skinnier side?" And he goes, "I don't know, but here's what I do know. My mom, she's perfect." And so the little lady did pretty much what you all just did, smiled and said, "Aw." And she says, "Well, okay, I think I know exactly what she needs." So she wrapped up a size 8, and she gave it to him, and he went home beaming like this. A couple of days later, Mom comes back to the shop and exchanges the 8 for a 16. But the reality of it is, there's this preconceived notion about mothers. Matter of fact, in most Mother Day messages that are going to be going on this weekend, you're probably going to hear a lot about Proverbs chapter 31. Now, if you haven't looked at Proverbs 31, you probably do need to, because it talks about, what is that perfect model of a mother, of a wife, of a woman. The problem that we have, and I'll be honest with you, I've never preached on Proverbs 31. How many here have read Proverbs 31? All right. Now, let's just say a lot of ladies, that's kind of interesting. I just noticed this. A lot of ladies raised their hand. A lot of guys just staring at me. All right? So now here's the thing. If you've read it, let's say that was the job description for a woman. How many of y'all measure up? That's the problem with it, and that's why I don't preach on it, right? So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at what if you're not perfect as a mom or as a woman or as a wife? What if you're not perfect as a Christian? What do we do with this? There's a little quote out here that says, being a perfect mom is a what? Is a myth. But I like this next part. Being a pretty great mom most of the time is actually possible. And I think we can all relate with this. My mother figure, not that I didn't have a mother, I did, but we didn't live together. My mother figure was my grandmother. Now, my grandmother is of Irish heritage. And if you know anything about the Irish, they have a wee little temper, right? And so my redheaded grandmother named Sperry, with all of her Irish fortitude, began to help me understand the correct way to do things in life. And she had a favorite tool to do it with. Now, some of you have grown up with mothers who have a favorite sandal, that if the shoe comes off, you know there's something you did wrong and you are about to learn what it was. Right? My grandmother, her favorite thing was the fly swatter. I worked so hard to hide that thing. I hid it in cabinets, under couches. I did everything I could. And no matter what I did, she found another one in the house. So while I was hiding the fly swatter, she had a barrage of them hidden someplace that she would just go find another one. But here's the thing about my grandma. While we laugh at that and we joke about that, she was probably one of the most compassionate ladies that I've ever known in my entire life. And I miss that with Grandma. I really, really do. I lost her back in, back in the year 1999, I believe it was. It may have been 2000. I can't remember. No, it was earlier than that. What year did I graduate, hon? 86. Yeah, so it was back in there 89 and 90. And so been without her a long time. Was very fortunate to get back together with my mom in her latter years of life and had her living with us for a while. But mothers hold a special place in many people's hearts. How many of you, when you're feeling down or you're just stressed, you just want to talk to your mom? Anybody? Yeah, whether they're still here or not. That is still there. George Washington made a statement about his mother. He said, "My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her." Now, you look at Abraham Lincoln, and he takes it a step further. Abraham Lincoln says, "All that I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." He had a pretty high hope of her. So my question to you today, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're a mother or not, or a mother figure or not, who in your life right now, number one, holds that type of an esteem, if you will, for you? Who is it? Who is it in your life that you mean that much to? I want you to think about that today, because we're about to launch into a story from the Old Testament that really exemplifies a mother's plight, if you will. If you have your Bibles, I'm going to invite you today to turn to the small book of Ruth. The small book of Ruth. Again, you're in the Old Testament. You're just a few pages before 1 Samuel. We're going to start in chapter 1. Now, we're going to be talking about a lady named Naomi. And this lady goes through a lot. Okay? I'm going to be sharing with you out of the NIV today, kind of giving you time to settle into the book of Ruth. I see some pages still turning out there. As we talk about Ruth, things start out okay, but boy, they take a drastic turn. And as you begin to read this, in these first 5 verses we're going to look at, I want you to think about in your lifetime about when things were going pretty good, and then it took a drastic turn. How did you react? What were you looking for in that moment? All right. Okay, so let's get started here. Verse 1, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem." Just stay with me, it gets better. "And they went to Moab, and they lived there." Now, Moab was a good place to be. Okay? Moab was a good place to be. He goes on to verse 3. "Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah." For years I read that as Oprah. I don't know why my eyes did that, but I did. Now you're going to do the same thing. You're welcome. "Orpah, and the other Ruth. And after they had lived there about 10 years, the Bible tells us in verse 5, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. There was a famine in Bethlehem, and so, being a good parental couple, they took the family to a place where there wasn't a famine, to Moab. Matter of fact, it was plentiful there. And as we're introduced here to this mother named Naomi, we have to understand that she, at least, and they, thought that life was going to be much better. But very shortly after getting there, her husband dies. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us why he died, just that he did die. Okay? And she and her two sons are left there alone. So that's the first tragedy that's hit her. Okay? They're left there now to fend for themselves. And some of you out here can even relate to possibly the feelings that she had. Maybe you've lost a significant other. Maybe it's been a horrible divorce and you're starting over. You know, those out there online that are watching us today and those that will watch this video, maybe you've had that tragedy hit you in your life. And you sit there after the initial shock and you wonder, what am I going to do? How are we going to survive? Because you must remember at that time, what was the status of women back in that time? Yeah, secondary and down, right? Men ruled. And so now she's a widow. She has a couple of kids. And then we're told here that as the verses go on, that these two end up getting married. So now she is a widower. She has 2 kids, when in all reality now it becomes 4 because the daughter-in-laws are now involved, right? And so when she thought things were just heading in the right direction, the emergency brake was put on and everything changed. Now we go on a little bit further and we find in verse 5 that the 2 boys die. Again, we're not told how or why. And Naomi is now left with no one in the family to provide. She now has 2 daughter-in-laws to care for. And just when Naomi thought that her purpose in life was almost served, her kids were grown, they were married, quote unquote, kind of out on their own, everything changes. She once again now has to figure out how she's going to provide for somebody else. That's a mother right there. How am I going to provide for these kids? She had to play the part of a mother all over again. And what we end up seeing here is a demonstration of a mother's strength. Mark Twain said this about his mother. My mother had a slender, small body, but a large heart. A heart so large that everybody's joys found welcome in it and hospitable accommodation. I don't know about you, but there have been many days in my life that I've seen my grandmother, my mother, my wife put aside their feelings, even though they might have been hurting, they might have had troubles, so that they didn't become a burden to somebody else and they focused on the other person's feelings. Matter of fact, that actually killed my grandmother. She had colon cancer. She knew about it. She didn't tell anybody about it. And all of a sudden, one day, we get a phone call that says, you need to get down here to the residential facility. We're pretty sure your grandma's colon has burst. And we're like, what are you talking about? Matter of fact, 2 weeks earlier, I was there on vacation, and we went out to eat, we went shopping, we just take her places she wanted to go, right? Didn't act sick, didn't act like there was a pain in the world to her. 2 weeks later, we're making a mad dash from Miami, Oklahoma, to drive up to Sedalia, Missouri, and by the time we'd gotten there, she had had surgery. She had contracted staph because of the situation, and there was just a little bit of time left for her to live. And I remember I went in there and I grabbed her hand and I said, Grandma, can you hear me? And she nodded her head because she had tubes and stuff all in her. And I said, you knew about this, didn't you? She nodded her head. I said, Grandma, how many times have I told you not to do stuff like this? And she picked up her finger and moved a tube over, and she looked at me the best she could, and she mouthed, love you. That was the last thing I heard. My mom got there a little bit after me. She was already passed at that point. And I got to thinking, actually, I'll be honest with you, I got angry. I got angry because the lady who really was my mom in all, real purpose, she gave so much of herself that she never took care of herself because she thought that she would be a burden to the ones that she gave everything to. Family, I'm going to share something with you that you can either take it in or throw it out. If you've got somebody like that in your life, doesn't have to be your mom, your grandma, doesn't have to be anybody specific. If you've got someone who is a constant giver in your life, make sure that you give back to them, because you have no idea the sacrifices they've truly made for you, because they won't tell you. That is a form of a motherly love. Now, you may say, well, my mother was nothing like that. Okay, I get it. I get it. But here's what I want you to understand about my message today that the Lord laid on my heart. A motherly type of love that we're going to look through here today is what Jesus spoke a lot about. Do you remember when Jesus looked over Jerusalem? What he said about them? He said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, oh, how I have longed to gather you under my wings like a mother hen does to her chicks. He understood motherly love. Now, do you have to be a mother to give motherly love? Absolutely not. Because here's the thing that we're going to jump to. Here's the thing. Motherly love is really godly love, even though he's Father, right? And so when we look at Naomi's plight and the situation that she is in, we begin to see that she has a lot to be nervous about, a lot to be unthankful for, a lot to worry about. We see that she is concerned, and as we continue to read here, I want you to go back now with me. In verse 6, when she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, Naomi and her daughters-in-law, that's both of them now, the three of them, prepared to return home. Where's home? Do you remember? Bethlehem. Returned home from there with her two daughter-in-laws. She left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-laws, listen closely, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown to your dead and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them. They wept out loud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. Now, folks, I hope you understand what's actually happening here. Naomi is now telling her only companionship to leave. She is now saying, in a sense, I want you to be happy. I want you to live a life fulfilled. I want you to be blessed by God. And because of that, you won't be that way with me. I want you to go back home. I love you, but I want you to go back home. She did not force them to go with her. It would have been easy, folks, and some of you may have even encountered this. It would have been easy for Naomi to say, well, you're the only two things I have left. We need to stay together, the three of us, the three musketeers for the world, right? If there was even a mention of them going in other directions, you could have easily said, well, hey, what about me? What about me? Now, I'm telling you, there are some moms out there who's done that, but I'm telling you, there's dads done it too. There's friends, there's families, all kinds of people done that. You know what? But Jesus doesn't. If you want to walk off, you can walk off. Jesus wants the absolute best for you. He wants to bless you. He wants to love you. He wants all of that. But He's not going to force it on you. If you choose to walk off, and you're going to find here in a moment one did. If you choose to walk off, He will allow that. You know, as we continue to read here, verses 11 on, but Naomi said, because they had just said, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons? Because she was older. Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I'm too old to have any other husbands. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me. Now, there's something interesting happening right here. This is the first time there's any mention of how Naomi sees herself through the eyes of the Lord. But still, again, we see that these girls have said they want to stay there. Now watch this. Verse 14, at this they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. So a choice was made. Orpah says, well, you know what? You got a good point. Maybe I don't want to be here. Maybe it is better off for me someplace else. And so she grabbed her stuff, and as you can see in the image here off in the distance, she's walking back to wherever home is for her, right? And Ruth has held on to Naomi. Naomi was willing to make the sacrifice, if you will, the sacrifice of her own happiness, her own companionship, all of that to help her kids be okay. There's a story that was told on Focus of the Family, on the Family, a long time ago about a sacrifice of a mother. I want to share real quickly with you here. There was a 36-year-old mother that was discovered to be in the advanced stages of terminal cancer. One doctor had advised her to take her remaining days and go enjoy life on the beach in Acapulco. Seems logical, right? A second physician offered her the hope of living 2 to 4 more years with the grueling side effects of chemotherapy or radiation treatment. And so, in the light of these decisions, she penned a small note to her kids. She had 3 little ones. She said, I have chosen to try to survive for you. This has some horrible costs, including pain, loss of my good humor. My moods will be uncontrollable, but I must try this for you. If only on the outside chance that I might live 1 minute longer with you. And that minute could very easily be the one you might need me when no one else will do. And for this, kids, I intend to struggle tooth and nail, so help me God, to live as long as I can. Can you imagine that? Now let's dig into this a little bit. Did Jesus have to come here and suffer and die for us? He didn't have to. He what? He chose to. He wanted to. He said, you know what? I know the anguish I am going to go through. I know everything that's going to happen to me. I know what is going to happen to you. I understand history. I get it. I'm going to be hated. I'm going to be chased. Eventually, I'm going to be killed, and it's going to be horrible. But you know what? If it means that you can live for eternity with us, I'm willing to do it because I love you. You see, motherly love when properly applied, is mirroring the love of God for us. Let's look at verses 15 through 18 now. Naomi says, "Look, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. Have you got anybody in your life that feels that way about you? Here's the interesting thing. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you do, even if you don't realize it. Because if nobody on this earth appreciates you in that manner, I'm going to tell you Jesus does. And I'm going to tell you He's going to go with you wherever you go, as long as you will allow Him to do so. So Naomi here, we see the first hint of her feeling like that the Lord's hand has gone out against her. And I think it's important because as they go on their journey, they head to Bethlehem, things take a turn. So in verse 19 through 21, we see this. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" Now remember, they remembered her, right? They were from there. Watch what happens. "Don't call me Naomi," she told them, verse 20. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." I don't know. Are we starting to see that maybe possibly all along, when she was caring about Orpah and Ruth, that she had this internal battle going on inside of her about who she was in the sight of God? Did she have her identity to the point where she felt like God was smiting her, that God was angry with her, that God was punishing her? Because here's something maybe y'all don't know. Do you know what the root name Mara really means? Mara is where we get the word mar from, and it literally means to mar. Now, what does it mean if you mar something? Anybody know? I don't want to buy that. It's all marred. Scarred up, scratched, bruised, damaged. Let's just call it damaged. So she's like, "Don't call me Naomi. Don't do that." Mara in the Hebrew literally means bitter, damaged. But here's something that you may not know as well. Naomi means blessed. She didn't even want her name because she felt God was so against her. You know, every time I read that, I think of the fact, I think of a number of things. First of all, I think of the fact that, do you realize how deep our identity with Christ really goes? Do you understand that if you don't understand your identity in Christ, you don't understand who you are in Christ as a forgiven individual, loved, passionately loved, forgiven, free, and a child of God? If you don't understand that, that damages how you see yourself. Look at this. Oh, something bad happened. Well, guess what? It's because I'm a bad person. Something bad happened, so God hates me. Something bad happened because I lost everything. If God truly loved me, I wouldn't be going through this. Now, who does that sound like? Does that sound possibly like a lie? If God truly loved me, I wouldn't be going through all of this whatever. Does that sound like a lie? Yeah. And where does lie come from? The enemy. The enemy is who? Satan. And it's because we don't understand our identity, we fall for the lie. It's the same thing that happened here. Now, what we really need to understand is up to this very point, there's no mention of Naomi being grieved or upset except one sentence that's hidden in the middle there. She doesn't appear to have anything other than just going on with life going on in her mind. And she knew she had to do it. She put the interest of others at first, and she went out and she decided to move forward. Oliver Wendell Holmes said this about mothers. He says, "Youth fades, love droops, the leaves of friendship will fall. A mother's secret hope, however, outlives them all." Mothers that are listening to me right now, I have a question that you do not need to answer out loud, nor do you need to raise your hand about. But I do have this for you. How many of you out there in the YouTube world or here or in Facebook, how many of you out there right now are hoping for something for one of your children that hasn't happened yet? How many of you have longed for years for them to find Christ? How many of you continue to pray for your child to come over some addiction, come into the realization of adulthood when they're already an adult? How long have you been burdened with this thought? Well, now you know how Naomi was feeling. But even more than that, I will also tell you now you know how God feels. I believe, and I'm just saying it's what I believe. I believe that it breaks God's heart to see the condition of our world. I believe it breaks his heart because, guess what? And this is hard for some traditional Christians to get into their head. But do you realize that anybody and everybody that's ever lived, that is living or will live, is actually God's child? Well, how can they be a child of God? Look what they do. Look what they say. Look where they go. They haven't been to church in 450 years. What do you mean? They're a child of God. I mean exactly what I say. God will know every single human that will ever be born. They are his kid. Matter of fact, the Bible tells us born in his image. Right? I thought about that a few times, and I thought, Lord, if you look like me, I feel sorry for you. But the reality of it is, I believe his heart breaks, but at the same time, I believe that motherly love that is talked about here with Naomi and others throughout the Bible, I believe that's really honestly godly love, and I believe that he has such a heart that it outlives any wrong, it outweighs any hurt, and in all reality, if we all would practice quote-unquote motherly love, I think our world would be a different place to live in. And I pray that as you think about Naomi and her identity, and that's a whole nother sermon. We haven't got that much time. We'd be here till 4 o'clock. If you think about Naomi and how she saw herself because of her circumstances, I hope you take a minute and examine your life. I hope I continue to examine my life and understand that the circumstances that I am in right now, be they good, bad, or ugly, is not an indication of who I am. It is not an indication of the level of God's love. Do you realize that God doesn't have different levels of love, don't you? You realize there's not like a level 1, a level 2, level 10, and we got to all get up to level 10 in the love before God's going to accept us. There's not. You see, with God, with God, yesterday, today, and tomorrow is all today. It's all now. It's here. And with his love that he had for Adam and Eve in the garden, it's the same love he's got for you and me today. I wonder if maybe we should start that practice. Have anybody in your family got somebody that you like but you don't necessarily love them? Or vice versa. You love them, but you don't really like spending any time around them. Anybody got one of those running around? Yeah. You know how it is. You get to the family gathering time, and they begin to talk about, we're going to go over to so-and-so's house for the gathering, or there's going to be a reunion. And then somebody in the house says, oh, no, I hope Jeannie ain't coming. I hope Joe ain't coming. I hope Bob's not going to be there. I hope Steve's not. Oh, man, if he comes in with another one of them women, I don't even know what we're going to do. Anybody ever heard anything like that when it comes to getting together with folks? Yeah. You know what's the funny part? The boys in the back are like, yeah, we've heard it. You know what? Everybody has heard it, which means, I'm sorry, you might want to lift your feet up for this, which means every single one of us, if we've said it, we need to practice a greater level of love. Because there's not going to be, when Jesus comes back with a mass of people that's going to go to heaven, God is not going to be up there going, oh, no, there's Tom. If he says something about that car one more time, if he says that story, if he tells us again, if he introduces himself one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. He's not going to do that. Somebody who has that type of love that's exhibited in the motherly love, they don't do that either. They may not be happy with Tom, Bob, Tyler, Joe, Jim. May not be happy with decisions that are made, but they still love them. And I want you to understand something too. And this goes specifically out to mothers and mother figures. You are not perfect, and we know that, and I know you know that. But when you mess up, I don't want you to feel like that God looks at you any less than he did the day before when you didn't mess up. I hope that all of you will feel that this Mother's Day can apply to you. I know this is a little small, so I'll read it. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers, to new mothers, to expecting mothers, adoptive mothers, foster mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, mothers who've lost a child, those who have lost their mother, mothers walking through infertility, and those praying to be mothers. To those who strained their mother relationship, and to those with strained child relationships, and I'll add one line there, and to those who are a mother figure for others. Happy Mother's Day. And when you think about it, think about all that these people do in your life that maybe you're not aware of. How many here believe your mother prayed for you, or a mother figure prayed for you? Okay, that's good. And I've actually asked that question before and nobody raised their hand. Not here, but yeah. Understand this, there's no greater power. Matter of fact, folks, Ellen White says that God's got a special place for mother's prayers. I'm looking at some right now. Pray for your people. Love your people with the type of love that's a godly love that is displayed by some mothers and some motherly figures. If yours is not one of those mothers, pray for them. And pray for you to grow closer before there's no more time to do so. Happy Mother's Day. I did it again. I got to turn around and go right back up here because I got to sing. Man, I love that dramatic exit, though. He's a boom, and he's a...